The first story for this evening was originally posted by a Reddit user called Rather Lovely Thing, but the I is a 1. Their story is called Stranger in a Bar. I worked in a bar that was also a guest house with some rooms in a small town. I worked on my own on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday evenings, and I would have very little patrons in on those nights. Now one night, a guy came in that I had never met before. Now after a while, it was just me and him left in the bar, and we ended up chatting. He was very well and very soft-spoken, and I was surprised upon hearing he had just been released from prison, as he really didn't seem like the type. Now, I didn't feel intimidated by him at all, so much so that he opened up about what he did, or at least his version of events. He told me that he went out drinking one night and he got so drunk that he accidentally went into a neighbour's house instead of his own, which happened to be occupied by an old lady. He told me that the old lady got such a fright that she called the police and he was arrested for breaking and entering. I remember him saying, "Oh, that poor lady, she got such a fright," and to me, he seemed remorseful. After a while, it was time to close up, and he finished his drink and left. For some reason, when I was closing, I noticed that the charity box that was left on the counter was missing. I had definitely seen it earlier. I asked the owner to check the cameras the next day, and he showed me the footage. When I was dealing with a customer booking into a room, he removed the little metal chain from the charity box and slipped it in a sports bag that he was carrying. Now, this wasn't even the most worrying thing, as the charity box would have only had $50 in spare change in it at most. No, what was worrying to me was that when he exited, he didn't leave. He went around the back of the accommodation and he started trying to find an entry back into the building. Now, what was also very worrying to me was that when I left, I always go around the back to check all the doors. Now, it's pretty dark out there and the place has no sensor light. Now, on the security footage, you could see the guy run behind a large wheelie bin when he heard me coming. I could see myself on the footage checking the doors, and I could see him look around him on the ground as if he was looking for something, maybe a rock or a pipe to hit me with. Now, thank God, he didn't find anything, and I left. He stayed a little longer after that, trying to find an entryway, but he couldn't find one, and then left. Now, a few months later, I was watching the news, and they were reporting on a murder that happened in another city. A man met another man at a bar. They went back to a hotel room and one of the men strangled the other, was so shook from the break-in that she died a week later. This is such a wild story. I mean, this Redditor got so incredibly lucky to escape that situation without being harmed by the guy, especially because on the security footage she could see him look around for something to hit her over the head with. Like, this could have ended so much worse. So much worse. It is very, very unfortunate and disgusting and outrageous that 2 people lost their lives because of this sick guy. I am very, very, very glad that they caught this guy and he can't cause any more harm to anyone. Well, at least until he gets out, that is. Let's hope he's going to be in there for a very long time. He certainly deserves it. This poor old lady, though, who got such a fright that she literally lost her life over it. That is outrageous. You know, people like this guy, the problem is that they don't realize that this is a living, breathing person with a life, with, you know, maybe grandchildren. That is somebody's mother, that's somebody's grandmother. And they don't think of that. No, they don't think. They just do. And they make some really questionable choices. Anyways, I, again, am very glad that this Redditor stayed safe, because it could have ended a lot worse. Alright, the next story was originally posted by a Reddit user called Aries Riser 1. Their story is called Still Wonder What They Wanted. I, a 20-year-old female at the time, used to live in a fairly sketchy part of a big UK city. I would get the bus into uni every day, but one time I was driving back to my parents straight after my lectures, so I decided to pick up my course friend, who was a 21-year-old female at the time, in my car, and drive into uni for the first time. Now, for context, I drove a 2006 plate Ford car, which was pretty battered by this point. A couple of dents and lots of scratches, but it did the job. Now, there is a clean air zone on the main route into my uni that the bus takes, meaning only buses, taxis, and permit holders could drive that way. So my Google Maps took me a route that I had never took before. The road where this took place was pretty quiet and non-residential, so there wasn't anyone around. All this took place at about 2 p.m. in When we came to slow down to a stop at some traffic lights, they mounted the curb and quickly drove in front of us, and then they parked their car at an angle across the road so I couldn't drive forward. The driver of the car got out and approached my car, signalling for me to get out. Now, weirdly enough, I wasn't scared at all. I was a fairly new driver, and I was just confused, thinking that maybe I had done something wrong. It was raining, so I wound my window down slightly instead of getting out. He then asked me where we were going. When I said to uni, he told me I had 2 flat tires and I wouldn't be able to make it there safely. I asked if he was sure because my car felt fine to me, so he told me to get out and come and take a look. I very, very stupidly took my belt off to get out. Please don't ask me why. I'm from a small and safe town, so I was not very streetwise. But thankfully, my friend had more sense than me, and she grabbed me to stop me. She also pressed a button above my radio which locked all my car doors. Thank God for her. Now, when the man saw this, it made him very angry, and he started trying to frantically open my door, and he started shouting at the other guy who was still in the passenger seat of the car in front in a different language. The other guy also started to get out of the car, and at this point I screamed and I reversed my car so I could drive around them. Luckily, there was no oncoming traffic, so I was able to run the red light without an issue to get away from them. I was fully expecting those men to follow us, but they just got back in the car, turned around, and drove back the way that they had come from. Needless to say, I did not have flat tires. It sounds so stupid to say now, but I honestly didn't think much of it at the time. I just assumed they were trying to scam me into buying new tires or something. However, now that I'm a couple years older, I keep thinking back on how creepy this whole incident was, and I wonder what would have happened if I had gotten out of the car, or what would have happened to my friend if they had taken the car with her still in it. I do think they were more than likely trying to steal my car and would have told my friend to get out, but this still doesn't make complete sense considering my car would have been worth about £300 or even less with how old and battered it was. First of all, that sounds so incredibly terrifying. I mean, those girls must have felt so intimidated by these 2 men in their 30s demanding they get out of the car. I mean, I can't imagine how scary that must have been in the first place. But then secondly, I personally doubt that those men were after the car, especially because it was, an old and tatty car that just about did the job. It wasn't anything fancy. was with the girls and not with their car. I honestly feel like if this Redditor and her friend would have gotten out of their car, they would have been taken. And, nothing good has ever come of that. So I am extremely glad that this Redditor's friend stopped her from getting out. And I am extremely glad that they stayed safe. As a bit of a tip, I guess, you can take from this that you should never get out of the car when a stranger asks you to, especially when they come with this very unlikely and outrageous story of you having 2 flat tires. Because, newsflash, you would definitely feel that if your car had 2 flat tires. You would definitely notice, not to mention that the warning sign on your dashboard would start blinking and all sorts. You'd get a notification on your dashboard if something like that happens, if you're driving around with 2 flat tires. So don't get out of the car. And once again, don't try to be polite. Don't try to be friendly, Be rude. Be rude and stay safe, please. Alrighty, moving on to the last story of this evening. This one was originally posted by a Reddit user called, and I'm not too certain how to pronounce this, so please don't come after me, called Xiaolongbei0. Their story is called Supposed Uber Driver Demanded I Got into His Car. This all happened a few months ago. It was my friend's birthday. We had had a few drinks and it was fun. The night went well, but at one point my friend was quite drunk. So some of his friends took him back home and I was waiting for a ride outside. Then a car pulled up right in front of me and a man got out and asked me what I was doing. Now, I was a little tipsy but not drunk at this point, and I told him I was waiting for my ride. Now, he proceeded to tell me that he, in fact, is an Uber driver and his client had just cancelled and he'll take me. Right there, I started to feel very uneasy, but I said, it's fine, I'm waiting for the Uber that I ordered. He demanded that I cancel my trip that I had booked and get into his car. Now, of course, I'm not dumb. I didn't cancel my ride, but I pulled up the app and I showed him that the nearest Uber was in fact 8 minutes away, and he's right there before my eyes, so obviously he was lying. Now, for some reason, he starts to defend himself and he pulls up Google Maps as if that was going to prove anything to me. Now, this just made him even more suspicious, obviously. He was being really, really persistent, just kept trying to convince me to get into this car. But luckily, there was a police car behind him, so he left. Now, obviously, I was relieved when he left because, I was finally rid of him. But then, about 2 minutes later, he comes back and proceeds to try and convince me to get into the car. I tell him that my ride is literally here and it was cheaper anyway, so I won't take him. He said that he will take €8 in cash from me. Now it's illegal for Uber to take cash, so I was pretty sure that he had ill intentions. At this point, I just freaked out and thought that he was going to snatch me up any time now. He then moved his upper body closer to me, as if he was trying to pull me in. Now, if I had to, I was going to fight back, but needless to say, I wasn't really prepared to fight. Now, there was a group of people who were standing near where this was all happening, and they asked me if I was okay and if this guy was bothering me. Right there, I explained everything to them, and they yelled at him. Now, at this point, an argument broke out between these people and the creepy dude, and he said, that he didn't do anything to me. He was trying to defend himself, but eventually he left. They stayed with me until my actual ride was there, and they even checked the number plate and stuff. Now, needless to say, I was pretty shocked and thankful that I wasn't more drunk at the time. Now, I was also thankful that those people saved me from that situation, because I don't know where I would have ended up if I had gotten into the car with him. I don't know what he wanted. I don't know if he has ever done that in the past to other girls, or if he still tries it to this day. So, my thought on this is that this guy has 100% done this before, and he may very well still be doing it. If they didn't catch him, if he hasn't been reported to the police yet, and if the police haven't caught him yet, there's a massive chance that he's still doing this. Now, the reason why I think that this guy does this on a regular basis is when this girl, very smartly, by the way, pulled up the Uber app and showed him that the nearest Uber driver was 8 minutes away and not standing right in front of her. This guy pulled up Google Maps to try and convince her, look at this map, look, see this blue dot, that means your Uber driver is right here, see? And he thought that she was going to buy that. I mean, obviously, that is something that this guy has done before, and it might have even worked for him before, which is terrifying to think about. There is absolutely no reason to want somebody to get into your car so badly, other than you have very ill intentions with them. So I am firstly thankful for that group of people who have stood there and who helped this Redditor out, because if he was actually going to fight this Redditor, it might have still ended very badly. Like they said, they would have fought this guy off if they had to, but they weren't prepared to do so. So I'm very thankful that those people helped this Redditor out. Secondly, I am thankful that this Redditor was skeptical from the beginning, and that, she stuck with that. That she pulled up the app, and that she showed this guy that, you're lying. Like, she was basically pointing out that he was lying, and that was such a smart and badass thing to do. So I'm very glad that at least this Redditor is aware that it's safe. Never trust somebody when they say that they're a taxi driver or an Uber driver. Never just take their word for it. Ask for proof. Ask for, credentials. You should always ask for credentials. Don't just trust whatever people say. Because as we've learned on this channel, people are not to be trusted. Obviously not all of them. Some people can be trusted. That would be a very sad reality if nobody was worthy of our trust. The problem is that you obviously don't know in advance who you can trust and who you can't. So, don't trust them. Ask for credentials. Sadly, that was it for tonight's scary stories. As always, a huge thank you to you for choosing to hang out with me tonight and for spending some time with me and listening to me ramble. And of course, a huge thank you to the lovely Redditors who let me share their experiences with you guys on the channel. For now though, all there is left for me to do is to wish you